and now the third one. My body starts shutting down.
Town council meeting to order. Please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You had in your package the minutes of October the 13th, 2020. Hopefully everybody reviewed them. Are there any additions or corrections to those same minutes? If not, they stand approved as presented. Report of the town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Tony, don't mean to get in your face, but
Hey there. How are you, Bart?
doing well, thank you. Just a couple of items for the record tonight. One, I wanted to report to you all on the status of activities with the annual Christmas light display at English Meadows. Some months ago, English Meadows requested the assistance of town personnel with installing lights for the annual Christmas display at the former Elks Lodge. When we were approached, we were told that without our assistance, there likely would be no display this year. Although our original agreement related to minimal involvement by the town, essentially loaning 2 or 3 temporary workers already under our contract, that has evolved into Public Works actually doing most of the work. So I'm mentioning this both for the benefit of English Meadows themselves and the general public in order to let people know that to keep this display going in our community, English Meadows needs some assistance, and it would be great if some local civic groups or a group of individuals could get in touch with probably Mr. Carl Saunders, who's the head of maintenance, and volunteer. Also, from the town's perspective, my recommendation is that we fulfill our obligation, but this is not a level of involvement that ordinarily we can or should provide on a continuing basis. So consider this a public service announcement on behalf of a cherished tradition that we need to probably all chip in and contribute towards. The other item I will note from an administrative standpoint is that town offices will be closed on Tuesday, November 3rd in observance of a state holiday. That concludes my report, but I'll be pleased to respond to any questions.
I'll concur with you on the analysis of the English Meadow. They got us this year, but we'll let council have to discuss it next year, because that's a pretty good expense.
How much are we spending on that, Steve? Do we know? Any idea?
We'll have a number when it's done, I think.
Originally, the net cost would have not really impacted us because we were funding the temp workers with unfilled permanent positions, but given the fact that we are now using our bucket truck and using full-time personnel, we'll get that report to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Bart. We have appearance for council, and we have Mr. Tony Martin. He's joining us by Zoom, and the council will get down and sit in the front row or whatever, and then he can impart his words of wisdom to us.
Okay, I think I heard my name, but I couldn't hear very well. Am I?
You're on.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Before I present my proposal to you, I want to tell a personal story about why I'm here. In 2016, shortly after the election, I attended a town hall meeting in Manita where the Republican congressman for our 5th district was slated to speak about health care. The hall was packed. Only a fraction of us could get inside. Outside, there were perhaps 100 people, very clearly divided along partisan lines. They were clustered in 2 groups in front of the building, and between them were 30 police officers. although the demonstrators on both sides were peaceful, the fact that there was a perceived need to separate us with a wall of police officers was alarming to me, and a sign of just how polarized our community had become. I had an impulse to walk through the wall of police to the other side and simply say, hey, can we talk? I didn't do it. But shortly thereafter, I learned about this national group, now known as Braver Angels, that was working to depolarize our politics. And I've been involved with them ever since. Now, I know that your work is not about national politics or presidential elections. But the widening divisions that threaten our national unity are very much present and widening here in our peaceful little town. In last week's Bedford Bulletin, there was a letter to the editor which framed this election and the competing political parties as a battle between good and evil. I have heard that exact same argument from people in Bedford on the right and on the left. I know that in our community there are citizens of goodwill, of all political persuasions, who don't share such a view. What can they do? What can we do? We can start by publicly saying so. To that end, I'm presenting 2 Braver Angel initiatives to you that I'm hoping as individuals, or perhaps even as a united council, you will endorse. The first one is called With Malice Toward None. I believe you have been provided a handout outlining some activities that churches, schools, or civic organizations can engage in after the election. The core of the initiative is a pledge to take before the election, found at the bottom of the page of the handout, and it reads like this. Regardless of how the election turns out, I will not hold hate, disdain, or ridicule for those who voted differently from me. Whether I am pleased or upset about the outcome, I will seek to understand the concerns and aspirations of those who voted differently, and will look for opportunities to work with people with whom I disagree. It is my hope that you will consider and sign this pledge. The second initiative is one that considers the very real possibility that this election will result in a constitutional crisis where there is no agreement as to who won. This one is called Hold America Together. Once again, there are action groups of citizens that can support, citizens can take to support this initiative. And if you're interested, you can learn about them on the Braver Angels website. But they all follow from a letter that citizens are encouraged to sign, which I believe you have been given a copy of. I encourage you to read the letter. I wish I had time to read it for you, but I've been told I don't. So I encourage you to read the letter, and if you are so moved, go online and sign it. And encourage others to do the same. And if you know of others in our community who you feel would want to participate in either of these Braver Angel initiatives, please let me know. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, did that come through? Are we done?
Good job.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Reports of council committees, Mr. Sly is,
Do you want me to report on that, Mr. Mayor?
yeah, I'm sitting here, we have electric in with finance.
The electric committee met about a week and a half ago, and we talked about the power cost adjustment.
Okay. Mr. Black.
The finance committee met this evening, went over the reports for the first 3 months of the year. Everything seems to be on track. Looks like meals tax and lodging tax are doing fairly well right now. They're not too far behind. So that's good. That's a good thing. We had a little bit of a discussion on the convenience fee that can be used to pay for your electric utility. We've got that. I think you've gotten it in your package. The consensus of the finance committee was not to make any changes to that. You know, that is a convenience fee. You can certainly pay your bill without paying that fee in a myriad of other ways. So we didn't recommend making any changes to that. And then we've started some larger scale kind of general discussion on some stuff on the finances of the electric utility, taking a look at our cash reserve policy and those types of things. So that was a good general discussion, and hopefully we'll look more down the road.
Thank you all. Council comments. I'll start with Mr. Stanley over there in the
Way
far wings.
out in left field.
Mr. Schoen is, had a prior engagement he had attended to, and I think Mr. Sly is out with an injury,
No.
put it less likely. Mr. Johansson,
No comment. Just
Stacy,
No, sir.
Mr. Black.
No, do you want to get in?
I'm going to give
Okay.
an update.
All right.
Last Thursday, I appointed a committee after our meetings Saturday at the retreat. Last Thursday, I appointed a committee of Mr. Black and myself regarding, I guess it's lack of a better word, a construction committee, which is also involves Chief Foreman, Gary McGyver, Lieutenant Walker. Am I missing anybody else? I think that's it. And at the review, we decided to issue an RFP for conceptual design for a new police department, parking garage, and farmer's market. And I got Gary to contact through his contacts a construction attorney who was well regarded in this area by the name of Scott Kowalski, who was with Petty, Livingston, Davis, and Richards out of Lynchburg. And he spoke to him today, and he's looking at an RFP. First, he wanted to make sure there was no conflict, and there is not. He's looking at the RFP that we prepared, and he's also looking at an ordinance that we may or may not have to pass, or resolution to do a design build. And he talked about we may be doing these as 3 projects on a case-by-case review. He definitely said we need to have a management review in it, and may need to do separate RFPs. But the point is, he's got it, he's on top of it, and he's working on it. And we will keep you, council, and everybody informed as we meet. I just appointed 2 council members, so we will not have to go through the processes of meetings and what have you. All right. Revisions to the agenda. I have one revision. Do you have any others? Okay. Where it states adjusting the demand usage-based rate roll call, I'm changing that to a discussion. All right. Then no public hearings, no consent agenda. Appointment of a member of the EDA.
Mayor Rush, members of council, Mr. Ryan Kirkpatrick expressed an interest in appointment to the Economic Development Authority, and at the council meeting on September 22nd, 2020, Mr. Kirkpatrick's appointment was tabled until the application to serve on appointed boards, committees, or commissions was completed and reviewed by the Town Council Board Appointments Special Committee. The committee has reviewed Mr. Kirkpatrick's application and recommends his appointment to the authority. And tonight, council is requested to appoint Mr. Kirkpatrick to serve on the authority, said term to expire November 30, 2022.
Would somebody state a motion appointing Mr. Kirkpatrick to the EDA?
So moved.
Would you state your motion, CG? Just say.
To appoint Ryan Kirkpatrick to the Economic Development Authority.
Thank you. Stacy, second. Any discussion?
Just real quick, the committee, there was,
Bruce and Brian.
okay, Bruce, can you just, do you remember, can you tell us a little bit about Mr. Kirkpatrick? Because I don't know Mr. Kirkpatrick. We didn't get a copy of that one, did we?
I was on the committee too.
So if you can just tell me that, I mean, since I don't know him personally, I would appreciate it.
Member of several civic organizations, has a young family. He's, what else he's got here?
He's the financial analyst, is that right?
Yeah, he's employed by Edward Jones. So he's, I don't have how long he was on that.
That's fine.
I'll add that he's not living in town, but he shortly will be. He's building a house over near the Elks Home.
Okay.
Is he building on that property?
Yes.
Because it doesn't tell me exactly where. He's living at Forest right now.
Yeah, but he said in the next few months he will be living at that residence. And there's Edward Jones down next to the food line.
But it's a young fellow with a young family, which is, we need to see more folks that
Getting involved, yeah.
get involved. And if we don't involve in that, then we can't. I think one of our concerns, I would hope that most of the council concerns with getting folks to serve on the various committees and to become members, run for council also in the future. So I think it's good that we appoint a young man.
All right, thanks.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mayor Rush?
Aye.
Motion carries 5 members voting aye, 2 absent.
Okay, we have the pleasure of listening to Mr. Brian Keith on the Bedford Regional Water Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Council, appreciate you giving us the opportunity to come here tonight. Brian Key, the Executive Director of the Bedford Regional Water Authority. With me tonight I also have Cindy Gano. Cindy's one of our board members. And unfortunately, a short timer for the authority. We've got 2 more months that we'll be able to use her expertise and have her on the board. We have several members that are coming off in, December 31st is the end of their term, and they can't be reappointed because of the term limit. So unfortunately, as much as we'd love to have Cindy back, she's done a great job. Elmer Hodge has done a fantastic job. We are in need of another representative appointed by town council. So we're hoping that that will be possible before January 1st so that we can start the year with an orientation and bring the new board members on and get them up to speed. We very much enjoyed having the representatives you appointed. Mike Boldenhauer stays on the board, still a town representative. Again, unfortunately, Cindy is not able to be reappointed. She was appointed by both town and county. And Elmer Hodge, of course, has met his term limit as well, and Elmer will be coming off the board. But y'all did a fantastic job at giving us those 3 board members. They've been just outstanding to work with. We've had a very good relationship, very good, productive experience with board meetings, no contention, and it was all about business, getting things done. And I hope you have seen that we've been doing quite a bit of work in keeping the town system going and linking up systems. And to that end, I want to talk a little bit about some work orders and our financial, a brief summary of our financial report.
Can I ask you a very quick question, Brian?
Yes, sir.
How many positions? Do we only have 2 positions now? We lost 1.
There are 3 vacancies. One of them goes to the county, was county. One is town, and Cindy's was both county and town. And the way that it works is based on the number of customers served, you have the proportionate number of representatives on the board. So as of January 1st, 2021, there'll be 2 representatives for the town and 5 for the county, because the customer base, which again is,
And Mr. Mollenhauer is our other.
that's correct.
It's a 4-year term.
It's a 4-year term, renewable for an additional term, so it could be up to 8 years total. Can't serve past 8 years.
Can there be a break and then come back after?
Yes,
So you can get served 8, take a 4-year break, and then
That's
come
correct.
back?
that's correct.
How often does the board meet?
They meet once a month, it's the 3rd Tuesday of the month, and then there are also permanent assigned committees, and Cindy's been on the committees that seem to meet the most. But generally, it's once every other month is a committee meeting. Sometimes they're stacked together, like finance, when we're doing the budget, there's 3 or 4, 5 of them, pretty quick back to back, but then there's usually a lull and then more. So on average, every other month for a committee meeting. Meetings last about 2 hours at our office that's on Falling Creek Road.
Okay, I was just curious about the number we still have.
Yep.
Proceed.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to attempt to talk with my mask on. Hopefully my glasses won't fog up, if so I'll adjust a little bit. The first page of the report that's at your desk is a work order report. And this is something that the board of directors requested that shows each month what number of work orders we've completed. And this is broken down into collection and treatment, distribution, for each of the service areas. And that gives you kind of an idea of where the work orders are being performed. So as you can see from the June 2020, we spent about 42% of our time on work orders in the town. The central water and sewer is basically the town system. Forest water and sewer, we spend about 20% of our time, and Manita sewer about 17% of our time. And then the balance is made up on Montvale. Office and other includes a couple new systems we've recently taken ownership of, the Cedar Rock system, Mariners Landing system, and then the small ones that we have around the office. And of course, Smith Mountain Lake and Stewartsville is a very small system, as are the well systems and Montvale, so they make up a very small part of the work. Really what I'd encourage the focus on would be central water, forest water, and Manita. Those are really our big 3. So that's an interesting snapshot for 1 month, but then the second page of the report, if you flip over, is an annual view of the same thing. The board, in their wisdom, wanted to see what's it mean all the time, not just what does it look like on any one given month. And it tracks pretty closely to what we see each month. So if you look at it for the last year, the last fiscal year, 43% of our time was spent in the central town system, 20.8% was in the forest system, and again, Manita sewer was 13% of our time. And of course, the pie chart just represents the same thing that the table has above it. That's interesting, but still not a complete picture, because you could have a dozen or 100 work orders that take 15 minutes each, and it makes it look like you're spending a lot more time in one area, where you might have another service work order in a different area that could take 2 weeks to complete. So it really is a better picture to look at it in terms of expenditures and then comparing that to revenues. So when you go to that third page, you can see that the revenue generated in the town system is about 24% of our revenue, and we spend about 30.8% of our expenditures in town. So that also somewhat tracks with what the work orders are. We're spending most of our time and most of our money in the town area. The forest service area, 61% of our revenue comes from the forest area. And again, this is water and sewer. We combine them per service area. And we spend about 42% of our time, 42% of our money in those areas. Now, I will point out the expenditures don't include the labor rates. These are purchases, these are items that are spent not on salaries. So when you see $3.2 million of total expenditures, just recognize our budget's around $13 million. So vehicles aren't in there, fleet. We haven't completely distributed all of those, or allocated all of those miscellaneous costs into these areas. These are just buying repair parts, repair clamps, purchases of water, electricity, all of the direct expenses, not the indirects. you know, one thing to note a little bit here, and I told Cynthia I wasn't gonna say it, but I'll give you the full picture here. On the water, you look at Smith Mountain Lake Water and you think we spent 17% on Smith Mountain Lake Water, but yet we only generated 6% of the revenue. That also hasn't been really allocated, distributed out as it should be, and probably will work to do that for the next report, because we treat a lot of water at Smith Mountain Lake that comes into town. So that expenditure on this report is shown as being a Smith Mountain Lake expense, but the water is actually either going into town or a lot of it goes to forest. So really, I think what we find is it's much closer to matching up. The 6% generated in revenue probably matches about the 6% expense, and the other 11 probably ought to be distributed out between the town and forest for those expenditures. So this is, you know, it's a pretty good snapshot to see where are we spending our time, where are we spending our money, where are we getting our revenues in. And as we continue with our rate adjustments, and I'll remind you, we had a 10-year rate adjustment that was planned as part of reversion, part of our consolidation into the VRWA. We are 7 years in. We chose to pause this year when we adopted the budget and not have any rate adjustments because of the pandemic. So we didn't implement that 8th year, or start the 8th year of adjustments. So we really have 3 still to go, the 8th, 9th, and 10th year of adjustments. And the board's going to review that again midway through the year and see if there's anything that we need to do, if we want to do, and then decide, if not midway through the year, at the beginning of the next budget year, whether we start back in that 10-year equalization process or not. As we do that, some of these numbers will come back into adjustment, and they'll be more equal to revenue generated in a service area equals the expenditures in that service area. Are there any questions about work order reports, revenue, expenditures, display?
So the work order report, is that typically just maintenance items that, or is that new construction or infrastructure replacement, or is it just kind of a reactive to something breaking and
Yep.
I gotta go fix it?
Great question. And the answer to both questions is yes. And the reason it's yes is because our work order system is still fairly new. We've been using one program for about 2 years now. And just as we were getting it underway and getting really good at it, we started they got bought by a new company. So we were using something called SIMS technology, and now we're using something called Cartograph. Cartograph's a much better product, and it has a lot better reporting capabilities, a lot better details that you can put into each report, and it's tied to GIS. So this report will get better and better. One thing that we noted when we were doing the work orders is we weren't capturing time spent by our operators, our operations staff that man water plants, man wastewater plants. We weren't capturing the time they were spending on replacing a pump or painting a piece of equipment or anything other than plain operations. And we started tracking that. Central Waste Plant jumped on the initiative first. We actually used them as kind of a guinea pig. And that's why you'll see some of their numbers look a little bit higher than, say, the numbers would for Manita Wastewater, or even Central Water started later than Central Waste. So I tell you that because it's not 100% accurate. We're still developing it. It's a pretty good indication. It steers you, I'd say, mostly in the right way, but it's not 100%. So that's part of why you'll see on the monthly report that treatment has 112 completed work orders, where we had Central Water Treatment only had 21 completed work orders. It's not that the Central Water guys aren't as productive, it's just that they hadn't started tracking as much in June as they are now. So the report will get better and better each year. This was something similar that I presented last year. We've definitely tuned it and improved it, but it's not detailed to that level that you could say it's just band clamps, it's just broken pipes. It does definitely include preventative maintenance work, but it's not really across the board. Great question. Any other questions about the work orders? All right, I'd like to draw your attention to the last page, which is our capital improvement projects, a list of them. We have a much more detailed CIP list and tabulation of what we have requested and what we've been approved by the board, but this is a pretty good snapshot of just what's going on in town. We've had 2 replacements. One of them was pretty large. The Dawn Drive water and sewer replacement was a pretty big job for us, and we had to actually hire someone to help us out with the sewer line because it was fairly deep and a little complicated. We did the water ourselves, and we did the Cedar Crest water ourselves. We then had to move our capital improvement team down to Manita to build a water line. When we took ownership of Mariners Landing, saved around $80,000 by using that team down there instead of contracting it out, and we got it done a lot faster. And then we moved them to a subdivision in Forest called Country Estates, and they've been working there recently. They're just about done at Country Estates, and they're going to be ready to come back in town. And probably the Avenel Water and Sewer might be the first one they start on, or it might be that Poplar Street and Windsor Street projects where the systems are in dire need of replacement. The way that we've targeted these is we have a GIS system that every time we do a work order, we put a note or a mark in the GIS. And so you can look at that and kind of see a heat map of which areas are we spending the most time in town? Where do we have the most backups for sewer? Where do we have the most breaks on the water line? And those are the areas where we focus and say we need to get started on those right away. These aren't the only projects that need to be done, make no mistake, but we have to have a starting point, and we have to focus our efforts on where we're going to survey next, where we're going to design and start the construction next. And so in the next year, Poplar and Avenel, Windsor Drive, those are going to be where we put our efforts. And as we're doing that work, we start the design of the next project. So our engineering team's designing while the guys are constructing, and our goal is to always have a library of projects that have been designed that we can pull off the shelf at any time and start the construction on them. Any questions about our CIP in town, CIP list?
You all are checking with our public works before you start doing this because of our blacktopping activities.
Absolutely. We work closely with Tim Hale, and well, Tim's his son. Wayne Hale, thank you. I was thinking of his son who works for us. Wayne works very closely with us and tells us where they're going to be doing replacements. We fixed the Bedford sewer line, for example. We really need to put that on here. It just was not last year. It was several years ago. We did that just before you resurfaced that portion of the road. So we definitely want to stay ahead of it. The last thing we want to do is cut that fresh asphalt. That just doesn't.
We had that happen on Longwood a couple of years ago. So.
Yeah, it's not great. We can't plan everything, but when we do know we're going to be doing a replacement, we definitely want to get ahead of that. Yes, sir. Yeah, great comment.
And we may be having some discussion about doing some underground utilities in the future, electric and those types of things. So we'll need to maybe try to obviously need to try to coordinate that with you all because, I mean,
sure.
If we're going to go underground, we might as well go underground once.
Yeah. We're frequently talking to DW, frequently talking to Wayne,
Okay.
and Bart and I. Anytime there's an issue, we've got, direct line of communication too, so we have a good working relationship with your staff, and we want to definitely continue
Just keep
that.
the electric utility in that too, because of that, like I said, if you are
Sure.
doing something that,
Yep.
that we may,
Yeah, we even talked a little bit tonight about disconnects and what we're doing with the city, what the town electric's doing as far as disconnects. So, yeah, it's good to have that open discussion, no question.
do. Thanks.
A few other things that I wanted to bring your attention to. We have a couple large projects that are getting ready to start. One of them is a sewer line in Forest. It's a total of a $12 million project. We went to the county and explained that the project will generate revenues over the next 30 years, the debt service period, of about $9 million. So there's a shortfall on doing that project of about $3 million. And the county partnered with us, and they voted last night to allocate $1.5 million towards that project. The real benefit of that is we did a financial study a few years ago with Davenport, and Davenport indicated that we really couldn't take on the additional debt service until 2023. We have several different things that are rolling off the books then, and until they do, we just couldn't afford to make the debt service payments. The assistance that the county is providing will allow us to go ahead right away and start on the project instead of having to wait until 2023. and that was the reason they funded 3 years, and roughly the debt service on that's gonna be about $500,000 a year. So 3 years, 500,000, they gave us $1.5 million, which is great. So now we can start on that project. Part of that project, it's a design-build project. We've done 4 now design-build projects, and we love them. They work really well. They're fast. You got more control over what you're doing, and we found that it actually saves us money. So we joined together 2 projects for that design-build team. The forest sewer is one of them. The other component is building the booster station that's on Ecrest, just as you get off the ramp on 460 and head down Falling Creek Road, or Link Road to Falling Creek Road. That station was it was designed as part of our water line. When we built the line from the lake up and the new treatment plant down Smith Mountain Lake and going out Forest on 460. We pulled that off of the project at the time because we wanted to make sure that we stayed within our budget and that we didn't do anything that was over and above what we had to do at the time. But what we found is operationally, there are several times that it would be beneficial to be able to bring the water from Forest instead of from Smith Mountain Lake when we need that supply in town. And we can do that now, but at a very low pressure, and we can't really keep the tanks full with a permanent station. So that project's about a $2 million station, and that will let us take water not only from Forest to the town, but also let us take water from Forest to Smith Mountain Lake. So if the Smith Mountain Lake plant weren't online, we could provide the entire volume of water they need through this booster station. That's really important coming the other direction too, because when we had an algae bloom at the reservoir about a month ago, we had 100% of the water for the town coming from the Smith Mountain Lake plant. It was great because we were able to avoid having that major geosmin, the taste and odor issue coming from the algae distribute through the system. We cut it off before it made it through the plant and before customers had a major impact. The problem is when we do that, we then can't send it to Forest anymore. And Smith Mountain Lake's our cheapest water. So we want to send as much water as we can into Forest, and we want to have the ability to continue to provide 100% of the water for the town at the same time coming from Smith Mountain Lake. And this booster station will do that. So not only does it give us redundancy, it gives us flexibility on where we want to distribute the water coming from the lake, and it gives us a lot of backup as far as coming into town from the Forest service area. So that project is getting ready to start construction. It was designed again years ago. We pulled it off the shelf, and we're having the design build team do some value engineering on it, making sure we keep the cost as low as possible, and also do the construction side of things. So you'll see that construction beginning shortly, and that'll have a tremendous benefit to the town. Any questions about anything that the authority's doing, anything I can answer for you?
Okay. I was thought you was getting ready to say, we need help, you need help, we want money.
We'd love that. Is that a volunteer?
Well,
I mean, that's great.
you started with 1.5 million from the county. I said, here it comes.
I mean, if you'd like to, that's fine.
No.
Our goal is
We
absolutely.
gave you an excellent system, Brian. You all be profiting from it.
And we appreciate it every day. Our goal is definitely to be self-sufficient. We want to be able to provide the service, without having to come and ask for money. The thing that made the Forest system a little bit different was just timing. We couldn't have gotten it done fast enough, and what happened is the Forest area just outpaced and grew faster than we thought it would. And at the same time, when we became the BRWA, we had to put all of our money into the Smith Mountain Lake project. So we had to defer the construction of this project. It's been on the PSA books before we were BRWA, and then it's been on the BRWA books since we were formed. We just couldn't do both at the same time. So we knew we'd have a little bit of a gap. It's just that the new developments exceeded the amount of time that we had before we had to let that service come on. So that's part of why the county gave us the money. But if you have anything spare sitting around, we'd be happy to take it. And we'll even let you pick the project you want it to go to.
No.
I appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we have to still appoint another.
Yeah, we'll have to find somebody that's qualified for that. For those that are watching and those that we may know. We have till December, January, so, anybody's looking has to go to fill out your form and tell us what you're all about. Just you and Brian and myself will look at it. Okay. amending the price adjustment, cost adjustment. Amending the price cost adjustment, PCA.
Thank you,
Four
Ma-
words.
Thank you, Mayor Rush. The price cost adjustment applied to all electric utility bills is scheduled to be amended effective November 1st, 2020. One of the variables involved in the calculation corresponds to the town's current costs for purchased power. The Electric Committee met on October 20th, 2020 to discuss the matter, and knowing that the town's cost for purchased power will decrease significantly effective January 1, 2021, the committee has recommended that the variable within the PCA related to this particular cost be amended to reflect the anticipated savings and to pass those along to customers in a more timely manner. The adjusted PCA, which would take effect November 1st, 2020, would be 0.00879, and just as a matter of reference, the current PCA is about 0.16. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the recommendation of the Electric Committee to amend the applicable price cost adjustment to a rate of 0.00879 with an effective date of November 1, 2020.
Using a motion, and please state the motion, whoever makes it.
So,
Can you state the motion?
excuse me, I'm sorry. Make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we put the power cost adjustment into effect on November the 1st. You need more than that motion, sir.
The rate,
That'll work. The numbers would be helpful, but that's all right.
0.00879.
As recommended by the Electric Committee.
As recommended by the Electric Committee.
0.00879.
I think I got that right.
As recommended by the Electric Committee.
I reckon. Okay.
Get prodded.
Give me a second.
We're gonna start, you're gonna have to start
I
stating the
know.
motion. You got that?
Recommended by the elected committee.
Okay. Is there a discussion? Tim seconded. Is there a discussion? Mr. Black, I'm sure you have something to say.
No, I mean, I think, this is a good thing. I mean, this is a function of, the work staff and council has done on, renegotiating our contracts, working on our power supply, portfolio. I mean, this effect would have almost kind of naturally taken effect next May. But we're bumping it up 6 months ahead of time, to help our customers save money. I did the analysis on my bill from last month. I had $1,100 kilowatt hours, and it's about almost a 6% savings on that monthly bill. So that's not anything to sneeze at. That's a good start. So I certainly support this motion and letting this take effect November 1st for our customers.
Anybody else? Correct me if I'm wrong, John, I think you said on 1,000, it would be about $5.78 savings, $5.78 or somewhere in that neighborhood. Isn't that what you came up with?
One other point too, this doesn't just affect residential customers, this affects all classes. This affects our small general services, our large commercial customers. Everybody across the board is gonna see a reduction in their electric bill because of the reduction in this power cost adjustment.
That's correct. And the savings on a typical residential customers will be $7.58.
Thank you.
So you had most of the numbers, just not in the right spot.
That's why you're sitting here.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thanks.
roll call.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mayor Rush?
Aye.
Motion carries 5 members voting aye, 2 absent.
Okay, staying on the topic of electricity, we wanted to have a discussion adjusting the demand usage base rate. The committee discussed it, the finance electric committee discussed it last week, and wanted to just kind of bring council along and tell them what we're thinking about, and then we'll probably, after the discussion and hearing y'all's imparted knowledge to us, then we'll go back and have a discussion and come back with something. Can you take that, Tim?
Somebody wanna, oh, you okay, well.
Let's talk about
You wanna
it.
generally discuss
Just generally discuss it. Yes.
And I can provide you some background information, then I'm going to sit down and listen to your discussion as well.
Okay, that'll work.
For the benefit of the other members of council and for the public, currently a provision exists which allows town electric customers within the small general services group to be billed entirely on an energy basis per kilowatt hour. Customers with usage above 2.5 kilowatts are billed with a demand component for usage in excess of 2.5 kilowatts. Most all of Bedford's 878 customers within the small general services group exceed that 2.5 kilowatt threshold. The electric committee met on October 20th to discuss this matter as well, and in an effort to provide relief for users in this category relative to minimum charges, the committee recommended that that threshold for billing on an energy basis be increased from 2.5 kilowatts to 5 kilowatts. So effectively, this will reduce the minimum charges impacting all small commercial customers.
Does anybody have any questions to, ask to, Tim, myself, or?
Just to point out, there was, I'm trying to find the sheet, real quick, bear with me.
The one we got a while ago?
Yeah, it showed how much that's gonna lead in revenue erosion. If we take it to about, if we take it to 4 kilowatts, from 2.5 to 4, I believe it was gonna be an annual erosion of about 58,000, something like that. Is that right?
57,557.
Okay, and if we take it to the 5, it was gonna be erosion of about 90.
92,759.
Thanks, CG. So what that means is, honestly, that's revenue we're giving up to give the small general services a little bit more of a break, because they're already getting a break up to the 2.5 kilowatts. Some of the questions, and I've had good conversations with John about that, is this just a start? Is there other things we can do to spread this out, this savings out amongst all the classes? You know, can we do something for the larger general customer as well as the small general customer? You know, obviously, when you're talking about, we're gonna have the demand cost whether we collect it from the customer or not. So how much of a savings do you want to give one particular class of customer? You know, because we're gonna have to pay that cost regardless. So, I think that, to me, I just asked if we could maybe just have a little more conversation about that, not rush into this. You know, obviously, first blush, hey, that's great. You know, let's give our small businesses a break, you know. And I think we'll get there at some point, but I think we just wanted to understand how that was going to impact budgets and you know, this has led to maybe a bigger conversation that we need to have as a council with our staff on where we want our utility to go. You know, obviously, it's the customer. We got to be fair to the customer, but we got to cover our costs, our needs, and that's kind of, I think, where some of the conversation is leading to, in my opinion. I'm just one of us, but that's kind of why I maybe think we need a little more discussion and a little more analysis of what this means to the utility.
And there's been a discussion for the last several months in the electric committee meeting about trying to help out our small customers. You know, they're paying a demand charge, and really all they're doing is running a one-man office and cutting the lights on. And we're trying to help our small businesses out, but you know, we gotta be fair about it across the board, as Tim says.
What they're paying now, what's the demand charge right now?
For small general, it's like $5.93 a KW. So the first 2.5 KW, they get free. They don't pay that towards their demand charge. So I mean, if you're talking increasing that to 4, that's 1.5 times 6, that's $8 a month. Which doesn't sound like a lot for one particular customer, but when you take that times 12 months times 878 customers, then we're starting to talk about a decent amount of revenue erosion.
And of course, this would require a public hearing before we make a decision.
And I'm not saying that I don't think we can do it, I just want that to be a little, very thoughtful about how we do that.
And can we handle revenue loss is what it comes down to. With that being said, anybody have any comments about it? I think that concludes our meeting. We are done.